Hey everyone. Just gonna give you all a few moments. Hello, hello. How are you all doing this evening? Welcome. Hey. As you start coming in, I'd love to hear where you guys are from. Welcome, Verona. Welcome, JL, Kebble, Karen Moody, Michelle. Hey, how are you all doing tonight? Sarah, Psyduck, Hochali, I think. Hey. So, good evening. My name is Ava Bock. I am with Ava Bock Art in Asheville, North Carolina. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains, right on the edge in between North Carolina and Tennessee, on the eastern seaboard of the United States. I am an abstract resin artist, and today was Takeover Tuesday with the Thrive Art community. I'm here doing this AMA. A lot of people seem to have questions about resin and resin art, and I am here to answer all the things. So go ahead and write your questions down in the comments. I have a few questions that I got from people ahead of time, and I'm going to go through those first, and then I'll go right back to the chat and answer all of those questions. Hello, Kibble from Qualicum Beach. Ooh, where is that? You've got to tell me. Never heard of that before. So the first question that we received is from Emmy of Missouri. So Emmy asked, where am I based out of? And she wanted to know a little bit about my family. So I'm originally from New York. I'm a New York native. I moved to North Carolina shortly after the whole 9/11 thing happened. I am married and I have 3 children. I love them very dearly. You saw 2 of them today if you were watching the post, running around and blowing bubbles and popping bubbles. And as I said earlier, I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. Oh, hello, Michelle in Pennsylvania. I've been to Pennsylvania. It is beautiful. And Cable, you are in Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Hello, Canadian friends. Hey, that's amazing. So our next question is also from someone in Vancouver. Alana of Vancouver went right to it and said, what materials do I use in my sculptures? So resin art is made of resin, but there's definitely more than one type of resin. The main resins that I use in my art are epoxy resin, which is the most popular, and I also use polyurethane resin. In my stories, there is a video showing actually how I made the polyurethane mix and poured it into these molds here. And then later on, when that was done off camera, I went ahead and filled some of them in with resin. So the type of epoxy resin that I use is actually called bioresin, which means that instead of being made out of fossil fuels, it's made out of plants or decaying material. So it's a lot more health friendly, a lot more environmentally friendly, and has a much better life cycle when it goes into the environment. So I currently use ecopoxy, and I'm also trying out and being very happy with entropy resins. Ecopoxy is out of Canada, and entropy resins is out, I believe they are out of California. So since you asked about my materials, I know you're all here for the actual like resin. So since you guys are here, I'm actually going to be demolding some of the stuff that you guys watched me pour earlier today. So these are all silicone molds, which is also something I use for my art. And you take these molds and fill them in, and you can kind of see, I think, where the dividing line is, and they just pop right out. And this is part of what makes it so much fun. So besides using this resin and the silicone for these molds and the polyurethane for my bases. I actually also use a really large amount of Vaseline. The oil in Vaselines actually help make a great cheap separator that also protect my skin and protect the mold. I use a purifier mask, which I have hanging here. Some of you saw me wearing it earlier. And I also wear goggles to protect my eyes, and I wear special industrially thick gloves made by Venom Steel to protect my hands. Because this stuff can be pretty toxic when it's in its liquid state, but conversely, once it's cured, it's not toxic at all. So, hello Jamie. Hello L. Buchanan Art. Love to see that you guys are here. So our next question actually comes from you, Jamie. Jamie of Vancouver said, how did I learn to work with resin? So I first started learning to work with resin actually when I was pregnant with my kids, and I couldn't get out of bed. And I was so sad and so depressed at not being able to make art that my husband tried to find a way for me to create art while I was in bed. And he saw this thing on Pinterest where people were making resin jewelry. He got me my first small resin kit, and I started working from it in bed. And anytime I got sick or I was bedridden, I would continue working with these small resin pieces. And it ended up being the best thing. So I kept going with it. And then when I started my bachelor degree, I actually switched from photography, which is what I was doing at the time, to become a resin sculptor. And I've been with it ever since. Oh, you do? Is it this one that you love? Psyduck says she loves this piece. So this piece is actually going to answer the question of Lewis from New York, who wants to know, what am I doing now? So a lot of my work with resin was testing a lot of things. Resin makes colors work differently, makes materials work differently. You put a flower in resin, it's going to react differently than it would in another medium. Color is really, really weird in resin. And so I did a lot of testing. This is actually one of my test pieces here, where I'm testing some iridescence. So as I have started expanding on my art, and I'm finally in a place where I feel really comfortable and I'm moving forward, these pieces that I'm making now are closer to where I'm actually going. So this is not a test piece. This is actually a small piece of art that I am making right now. It's about 50% of the way done. And this is also another direction of where I'm going with my art. These pieces right here that I'm working on that you saw. And these would be considered resin paintings because of how thin they are, and because pretty much all of the colors, layers of resin are in a single plane. Where this piece here is actually a resin sculpture because it's much thicker and because it has things in the multiple planes. So even though it's a solid block, this would be considered a very small sculpture. So our next question comes from Kathy of North Carolina. Kathy asks, what inspires my art? So the themes in my art generally come from perception, memory, and emotional experience. So for me, I do a lot of meditation, and meditation is a big part of the work that I do. And in that, I meditate, I calm, I reflect, and I think back to memories. I think back to moments in my life where things have happened. And instead of focusing on the visual side of it, I focus and hone in on the emotional side of it. How did it make me feel? How do I feel now looking back at it? And I take those feelings and then I try to infuse them into the pieces. Sometimes it's with music. Sometimes I get inspired by looking at a photograph. but it's always about the emotional memory. It's always about the perception of time, of how I felt and how I am, that goes into my art. Now, I did see a question. Let me scroll back up here. Cy Duck says, since you have transitioned from photography to sculpture, what has been the most difficult aspect of that change? And what has been the most rewarding? Ooh, I love that question, Cy Duck. So I would have to say that the most difficult part of moving from photography to sculpture is the fact that photography is 2D and sculpture is not, it's 3D. And so there's a lot about the way that you see things on a 2D plane that don't work in sculpture. And so it was really hard for me to get past that fact and to move on beyond it. The easiest thing, though, was once I realized that photography and sculpture are the only two art forms that have their own shadows. So in painting, in drawing, you have to make the shadows. But in photography, the shadows come with the photograph. And so learning how to see the shadows is what enabled me to start figuring out how I was going to transition to sculpture. So the next question that we have comes again from Jamie of Vancouver. Do I work in individual pieces or do I work in series? So a piece like this, which seemed to be like a really popular piece today, this is a 16 by 16 piece. This is a singular piece. I did a lot of meditation and prayer on this piece, and it was just what came to me. But other pieces like this one, which many of you may recognize from my color theory series, is a series. And right now there are about, I'd say maybe 15 of these. And this series is going to be expanded quite significantly, especially over the next year as I delve into colors across the spectrum and start to move out of the warm tones. So it really depends on what the theme of what theme I'm going after and what I'm chasing, what emotion, what feeling that I'm working through. That's definitely what tells me if it's going to be a series or if it's going to be a singular piece. Singular pieces is something that's very focused, and once I'm done, I'm done. But when it comes to a series, it's something that I think about over and over again. And no matter how many times I make something, it evolves into something else in my mind and I have to make something else. So, we have some new people have joined. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Miss Moody. Hello, Haley, Red, Margot, Hitana, Shalit, Taya. Hello and welcome. I love seeing all of you. One of the things that I really, really love about my art and love about being around all of you guys is the community that I've had at Thrive. One of the things that they've really helped me get into with my meditation and with my learning and connecting with art was journaling. And we would journal and we would talk and we would go away for the week and come back and we would all be on Zoom and we would be chatting away about everything that we had written and learned and stretched into ourselves. And that is a really, really big thing. Why I'm here with Thrive now after 2 years of being with Thrive. And journaling is why I have this book here. I actually make journals. So this one is from years ago. I've had it for years. It has my photography on it. That's how old it is. And then I also have other journals here that I'm actually looking at that have my art on it. So this is a place where I'm expanding into because my art and my sculpture isn't just about me meditating, but it's how do I meditate? How do I connect after I'm done with the art? How do I bring myself to that place of calm that I love while I'm making my art when I can't have my hands in a bucket of resin? And so journaling and drawing and sketching and doodling and writing, all of those things, all of it goes into my art. So we have another question. Have you tried using both of your talents together photography and resin? Miss Moody, that is an excellent question. In fact, when I started in school working with resin, since I didn't know how to make something so liquid into a solid sculpture, I would print out photographs on acetate film. I would manipulate the film and then I would put the resin on it. One of my very first sculptures was a sculpture based off of my photograph, Birth of Idea, and it was called Forming an Idea. And I broke apart a computer and I ripped out all of the guts because the computer was already dead. And I took these computer pieces and parts and I fused them in different layers all around this beautiful model who was coming out of this sea of white light. And actually that is my first formal sculpture. And one of the other students at the university purchased it from me because they were so in love with it. So yes, I did and do fuse my photography and my resin together. I don't do it as much anymore. Now I'm definitely moving into working with resin as its own material as opposed to it being something that I coat something else with. So another question that I have is from Jamie of Vancouver. She had a lot of questions. This one is, do I make sketches or studies before creating my work? So the answer to that is yes and no. So I don't formally sit down and actually draw something out and plan what's going to happen with a sculpture or a painting, a piece. It's very intuitive. However, during my meditations, like I said, while I'm journaling or I'm drawing or writing, I will come up with ideas that are related to whatever the theme is that's running through my mind at the time of the meditation. I don't break my meditation for it, but as soon as it's done, just like a dream journal, I jot it all down, writings, drawings, everything. Then later on, when I'm in the studio, I'll revisit those sketches and drawings and see if anything kind of keys up in me. And if I'm feeling inspired, if something says, yes, we need to work through this idea today, then it will be kind of the skeleton. But my work, for the most part, is intuitive. It's in the moment because emotions are purest in the moment. And even as you think about them, they start to change on you. So I try to work while I'm in that state and not plan things out too much. So, let me wave back at you. All of you lovely people, it's amazing to see you all. Let's see, what has been my latest artistic breakthrough or achievement? Ooh, well, hello, Copper. Well, today has been my latest achievement, working with Thrive to do the Tuesday takeover. I will say that very, very recently, I was asked by the Alamance art community to have my color theory gems that I have right now go on display in their county. So soon in Alamance Art Council's building, a whole bunch of these gems are going to be displayed. I've never been asked to do anything like that. So for me, that's an amazing achievement. And I am excited to see where everything goes from here. Hello, Gara and Nicole, welcome. So one other question that I received is from Melissa of California. So in some of my posts today, there were various devices all over my body. And if some of you have seen, I'm wearing something right now. So I have various medical issues, things that are chronic that I have to deal with. And that machine that was in my story post this morning is actually a machine for people with lymphedema, which is basically you hold on to fluid. And I don't want to look like the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka, so I use the machine to help move the fluid through my body and help it so that I'm not in so much pain. It is something that's chronic. It is something that I wear every day and I have to do it, and it lasts about an hour, but at the same time, you're getting a massage from air. That's not really a bad thing. I would recommend it to anyone. Not the disorder, but the machine. It's a very cool machine. And we have Carney. Hello, hello. So one of the other questions that I get asked a lot is the size of my art. Is it standard? And as you can see, no, it's not. For the most part, pieces of this size, which are anywhere from 3 to 6 inches in diameter, like this painting that I'm working on right now, that's pretty much where I stay for the most part. But like I said, this piece is 16 by 16. And this one here, which I'm working on, is actually 24 inches in diameter. So this is the largest piece that I'm working on. And I don't necessarily know if I'm going to go larger than this. When I started making the resin art, because resin is not a cheap material, I actually started by making 1 inch in diameter magnets. I don't make those anymore either, so I generally won't go below 3 inches in diameter or 3 inches on any side, and I won't go above 24 inches in diameter or 24 inches from corner to corner, to answer that question. Beyond that, do you guys have any last minute questions before I go ahead and go? It's been a long day for me, and I actually have to give Thrive back their channel. All right, well, thank you very, very much for all of you who joined, who asked questions, who came and saw and loved and shared. Oh, we do have a question. Hold on, it says, you used to embody Meridian Sage, then Cerebral Aperture, and now Ava Bock art. Can you explain your transition? Yes. Okay, so this will be our last question for the night, and it's really, really good. A really good question to ask. So when I started as Meridian Sage, I was coming into myself as an artist. I was unsure of who or what I wanted to be, but Meridian Sage, Middle Wisdom, really kind of held to me. As I pulled into photography and became a professional photographer, Cerebral Aperture, which really keys into the photographer aspect of things, felt right. I felt connected to it. You know, you're using your mind, your eye is the aperture. That is what you're using to make these photographs and these images. But when I started moving towards sculpture, that just didn't really resonate with me anymore. And I felt that it was time to unify myself and just go under my name. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing photography or sculpture or painting or drawing. I am Ava Bock. And so it's Ava Bock Art. But with that, I thank you all. You have a great night. You've been amazing. And feel free to come visit me over at Ava Bock Art. And we can keep chatting, talking, and enjoying the resin love. Y'all have a great night. Bye.